The press wires are abuzz with indication that battery electric vehicle owners have the highest satisfaction since the inception. This study has been in existence for the past 6 years. Let's get into it. There's been multiple EV-centric news outlets that have been reporting on the JD Power's battery electric customer satisfaction survey, which is now, as I said, in its sixth year. It's the Electric Vehicle Experience Ownership Study. That's the official name of it. And they just released the 2026 findings for that study, indicating that it's now at the highest level it has been since its inception, with nearly all owners of BEV saying that they would consider purchasing or leasing another BEV for their next vehicle. Now, before we get into the details of this, I just want to go over an anecdotal situation that occurred for me this past weekend. My son was getting ready to receive my mother-in-law's car. She's kind of aged out of the point where she's able to drive herself safely. So we, as a family, decided it'd probably be best if it was allocated to someone else within the family. And he was the person who got the ticket for receiving the car. So we went up, and there was a car that had been sitting idle for a full year. And obviously it wouldn't start. And with gasoline being a volatile chemical, if it stays stagnant too long, it basically goes bad. So you have to add either an additive or supplement the gas tank, and major headache in order to get this thing started. And once it actually started, we had to basically go spend $250 for a new battery. We had to buy a gas can and bring it over to the car. We were trying to avoid having it towed to a mechanic. So we were just trying to get the thing started. Once it started, it would only go 20 miles an hour. It was a tremendously frustrating situation, and basically blew apart our whole Sunday with the car that had been idle for as long as it had. And this is not, as I was going through it, I was remembering what it used to be like to be an ICE owner. As we were handing over the keys to him, I said, well, you're going to have to get the oil change every 3,000 miles. It's, there's the transmission, and you're going to have to find yourself a good mechanic and all these things. I used to really be excited when I found myself a reliable mechanic. I haven't had a mechanic since I've had an electric vehicle. I mean, I don't even know what they would work on. I really don't. I mean, we bring it into the dealership every so often for them to do some programming that takes a ridiculously long time. It does. We have two General Motors electric vehicles. Most of the updates come over the air. We have one Cadillac Lyriq, and for some reason, some of the modules need to be programmed at the dealership. So we do that. Rotate the tires. We got new tires for the Lyriq. Just quickly going over some of the subsystems that electric vehicles don't have, and I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir here, but it doesn't have a transmission. It doesn't have a radiator in the traditional sense of the word. It doesn't have an oil pan and oil system. It doesn't have, it doesn't have an exhaust system, obviously. So that whole thing doesn't exist. It doesn't have, you ever wake up on a Tuesday morning to a mystery oil on the floor of your garage, kind of ruining your day and trying to figure out what you're going to do in order to just get to work? I haven't had that problem with electric vehicles. It's just a very dependable mode of transportation that is basically a solid state car. I mean, it might be a little bit lofty of a statement, but that's basically been my experience. My Chevrolet Equinox has got 17,000 miles on it in the first year. I just passed the first anniversary. And nothing, absolutely beautiful. I just got a software update that's going to let me stream YouTube right into the center console. And so added features and being able to remote start it. And I know you could remote start a nice car, but it's not the same as being able to remote start a car that's sitting in your garage and let it run for 20, 30 minutes prior to you getting into it on a cold morning. A couple other things that a electric car doesn't have. I did mention the transmission, and that's a big one because it always stinks to have a transmission job done on a car that's 6, 7, 8 years old. And the car that was in question that I had to deal with this weekend was a Jeep, and Chrysler are kind of known for having problems with transmissions more so than other cars. At least that's been my experience. Dodge back in the day, when that was a brand, was kind of famous for having transmission problems after about 2 years. It was always something that you had to be concerned about. But there's also something called a serpentine belt inside ICE cars, and that thing always was problematic. And just all that stuff just don't exist in an electric car. And I just love having to not go to gas stations. I remember once a week I'd have to bring the cars into the gas station in order to top them off in order to get through the work week. Not a part of my life anymore. And I can't be alone. It's one of those things that once you see it and you get religion, it's like you can't unsee it. So in my particular case, it started with a 2019 Tesla Model 3 that my wife parked in the garage, and I quickly understood that road tripping was non-consequential using the Tesla supercharger network, and it was just very painless and frictionless and enjoyable. It was enjoyable mode of transportation in order to do Tesla supercharger stops. It's kind of like an adventure. And then I started to realize, hey, this thing doesn't need any oil changes and it doesn't break down. And I looked into the scheduled maintenance for the Tesla Model 3 in the manual, and it basically said, yeah, there isn't any maintenance for this car. And that just blew my mind. After I started to see it for what it was, I was all in. We have been fully electric now for, I think, 3, 4 years, something like that. We had a last ICE car that we had that we handed in was a Hyundai Ionic. It was a hybrid, not a plug-in hybrid, just a hybrid. And that car went to Carvana, and then we just had the all-electric household ever since then, and that's where we are now. Right now, we've got 2 General Motors cars, as I said. And as I said, I'm not an overly smart guy, so I can't be alone in these realizations that when you switch to electric, your life becomes better, because there's that whole concern of impending doom and having to have a good mechanic on speed dial just doesn't exist. And the whole getting the routine trips to the gas station completely pruned out of your life, it's just a dream. And so anyway, going into the study now, 2026 electric vehicle experience ownership study. The authors are JD Powers in collaboration with PlugShare, which it mentions further on down here. This was released February 18th, 2026, so just very recently. A couple of key facts. Public charging is improving. I watched public charging under a microscope, and the Tesla supercharger team has been relentless. And we'll see here that the cars that are getting called out are by and large Teslas, the Tesla Model 3 and Tesla Model Y. And so those cars have a very easy time of getting new electrons piped into their batteries because of the relentless efforts of the good folk at the Tesla supercharger team doing very extensive build outs. But there's also reliability factors that are increasing in the CCS non-Tesla network, and we're standardizing on the J3400 plug. And so once Tesla opened up the Tesla supercharger network to other cars, and the CCS network started to expand and improve, Tesla supercharger started to expand, and we're starting to see increased satisfaction from public charging, which didn't used to be the case. So that's one thing that bumped up 2026. Secondly, premium DVC quality improvements. I don't know how that's able to be quantified, but I'm going to take their word for that. And they go into some kind of statistical analysis down here, points per 100. I'm going to skip over that one. And the third bullet point, higher than plug-in hybrid. Now, you would think with the news headlines that are currently coming out in the traditional media outlets that plug-in hybrids are the way to go. That's kind of where everyone's being steered. Stay away from those battery electric. You want the plug-in hybrids. But this study is saying that if you go plug-in hybrid, you're not going to have as much of a satisfaction score as if you went pure battery electric. Anyone who's been through the rabbit hole, jumped in and gone full electric, is going to agree. I don't want an engine. I do not want an engine in my car. It is a hassle that is unnecessary. I can get around perfectly fine to and from my daily commute. I can go on long road trips. I can go see grandma. I can go do anything I want in an electric car without the increased hassle of an electric engine that a plug-in hybrid necessitates. So I think that's a very important thing to call out. PHEV counterparts 17 points and score 114 points higher than premium plug-in hybrids in this area. And BEVs outperform by 117 points. Okay, rankings. And let's kind of go down to the graph. It's a little bit easier to read in graph form, right? Everyone likes to see pictures. So this is the premium class, and they put the Tesla Model 3 and Y into the premium class. I suppose that could be argued, but I think the i4 and iX is a different driving experience than the 3 and the Y. Really, I think in premium classes, you should be looking at the S and the X, but in this particular study, they lumped the 3 and the Y into the premium section, and it scores, the 3 scores the highest, which was the car that I had, that, as I said, I was just really blown away. It was like an awakening of what the future could be. Imagine a world where you don't have to have a mechanic on the speed dial. Imagine a world where you don't have to go to the gas station every week. Imagine a world where you can fuel your vehicle in your garage cleanly. Imagine a world where there's no mystery oil on the floor on a Tuesday morning disrupting your entire work week. Imagine a world where you don't have to go get oil changes every 3,000 miles, on and on and on and on. So for me, the Tesla Model 3 was that car. And scores very high, very reliable, dependable car that has a high customer satisfaction. They don't actually call out whether or not the FSD feature is a reason for this or not. It might be further on in the study. This is basically just the press release, and the study itself actually has a lot more meat, and you can get the study if you're a paid customer of JD Powers. And then the Y would be second, BMW i4 and iX after there. Cadillac shows up with the Optic at 762, R1S 758, and then a couple of other ones. And the T, that's interesting that they lumped the T into the premium. That's kind of strange that a truck would show up in the premium list. Further, in the mass market, Mach-E sits on top of the heap with the Ioniq 6, not the Ioniq 5, but the Ioniq 6 at a higher level. And I sat in one of those. I haven't driven one, but I've sat in one, and boy, is it a nice car. For me, a person my age, I'm in my mid-50s, it really harkens back to the design elements of the old Porsches. And I don't know, it's just a nice looking, cool car. And every time I see one, I just kind of pause and the breath leaves my lungs for a few seconds while my heart recuperates. Oh, Ford F-150 Lightning is here, and this is my car that I drive on a daily basis in my garage right now, in the process of getting new electrons from the dryer outlet that we had installed in the garage, and Prologue at the bottom. Now, why this is important, let me just put this into context. 2026, we're seeing increased range, we're seeing improved charging, and outpacing of plug-in hybrids with battery electric. The reason why this is important is because we are in a cycle where there is a large volume of leases getting ready to end. Now, what happens in one of these cycles is people who were leasing cars like 3 years ago are getting ready to turn them in. Those people are not, because of the satisfaction survey being 96% would consider purchasing or leasing a BEV for their next vehicle. 96% of the people who are going to be handing in their leased vehicles are going to be considering a battery electric vehicle for their next car. That means that those numbers of people are going to stay loyal to battery electric. Secondly, all those battery electric cars that have been handed in by leases are now on the used car market, very likely going to be purchased by people who are new to battery electric, because that's just kind of the way this system works, is those leased vehicles go into the used market, and then the used market are picked up by people who are looking for bargains and whatnot, and the battery electric prices become very attractive. That's just one of these trends that have unfolded as a result of EV sales cycles. So what we're looking, even though we're seeing a downturn in sales, not actually a downturn, a decrease of growth of sales from what we saw in Q3 2025, we're looking at a sales kind of like a quiet sales spike through the used market as these lease vehicles get handed back in and then cycle through the system. And then those people who did have these battery electric leased vehicles are going to stay loyal to the battery electric drivetrain, is basically what we're looking at anticipating. And this JD Powers customer satisfaction survey speaks volumes to that. And my personal opinion, I've heard some people who were griping about the difficulties with electric vehicles and how hard it is to be an electric vehicle. I have not actually personally spoken to anyone, and I've been at a lot of charging locations where they said, "This stinks. I'm turning this electric vehicle." I've never come across anyone, and this is really saying something because I've seen a lot of people. Maybe I'm just in an insulated crowd, and I'm just around EV fans, and I don't hear the voices of the people who are complaining actually in mass out there. But it seems as though once you see an electric vehicle for what it is, it's really hard to go back to an ICE vehicle. As I said, this weekend was just reinforcing that for me. That car that wouldn't start and needed gas and wouldn't go past 20 miles an hour because the mechanics of the engine and whatnot. I'm not going back there, man. I'm just not going to do it. My life is way better without all that madness in it anymore. And this study kind of echoes my sentiment. So I have to believe there's at least a significant amount of people out there who agree with me. Anyway, thanks for watching.